Now we are on to reading section of test 3. So we'll be reading the passages and after that there'll be some questions and you advised few minutes for different passages. So passage 1 is this. After this we'll have answers or question answers session. These are 3, these are till 6. So around 10 questions. 10 questions from the first passage, or rather 13 questions from the first passage. So uh, after that we'll go to reading passage 2. This again is for 20 minutes. We have question following passage 2. These are 26 question, means from 14, because 13 we have covered in passage 1, 14 to 26, and finally passage 3, and this is passage 3, right? Let us start and let me read it for you so that I may highlight those points wherever it is important for the question answer series. And before we go ahead, it is always a good idea to read the questions, because once you have read the question, you are aware what to extract. Means the main topic discussed in the text is, so when you are done with the reading, the main topic discussed, what is the main topic, what is coming out of the text. Second is, according to the text, every year lightning, what it does, means lightning effect. So whatever is being told there, we have to find the correct answer. And the researchers at the University of Florida and at the University of New Mexico. So whenever we read, we need to find out, and we need to thrust upon University of Florida wherever it comes, University of New Mexico, because the question is based on it. Then no more than 2 words, means EPRI receives financial support from whom. The advantage of the technique being developed by DLs is that it can be used dash, and the main difficulty associated with using the laser equipment is related to its dot. Then finally, this is a summary listing, means in this method a laser is used to create a line of ionization by removing electron from the dash. Then this laser is then directed at dash in order to control electrical charges, a method which is less dangerous than using dash. And as a protection of the use lasers, the beams are aimed firstly at. So whenever we encounter this content which is wherever it is described, then we will be actually caring about these words which are coming in between. Let us start. You should spend about 20 minutes. So let us start striking back at lightning with lasers. Seldom is the weather more dramatic than when thunderstorms strike. Their electrical fury inflicts death or serious injury on around 500 people each year in the United States alone. As the cloud rolls in, a leisurely round of golf can become a terrifying dice with death. Out in the open, a lone golfer may be a lightning bolt's most inviting target, and there is damage to property. So lightning damage cost American power companies more than $100 million a year. But researchers in the United States and Japan are planning to hit back. Already in laboratory trials, they have tested strategies of neutralizing the power of thunderstorm, and this winter they will brave real storms equipped with an armory of lasers that they will be pointing towards the heavens to discharge thunderclouds before lightning can strike. Then the idea of forcing storm clouds to discharge their lightning on command is not new. In the early 60s, researchers tried firing rockets trailing wires into thunderclouds to set up an easy discharge path for the huge electric charges that these clouds generate. This technique survives to this day at the test site of Florida, run by University of Florida with support from the Electrical Power Research Institute, EPRI, based in California. EPRI, which is funded by power companies, is looking at ways to protect a United States power grid from lightning strikes. We can cause the lightning to strike where we want it using rockets, says Ralph Bernstein, manager of lightning projects at EPRI. The rocket site is providing precise measurements of lightning voltages and allowing engineers to check how electrical equipment bears up. Then bad weather. But while rockets are fine for research, they cannot provide the protection from lightning strikes that everyone is looking for. The rockets cost around this much amount, 1200, can only be fired at a limited frequency, and their failure rate is about 40%. And even when they do trigger lightning, things do not always go according to plan. Lightning is not perfectly well behaved, say Bernstein. Occasionally, it will take a branch and go someplace it wasn't supposed to go. And anyway, who would want a fire streams of rockets in a populated area? What goes up must come down, points out Joe Cloud Deals of the University of Mexico. Dales is leading a project which is backed by EPRI to try the user use lasers to discharge lightning safely, and safety is basic requirement since no one wants to put themselves in their expensive equipment at risk. With around this much invested so far, 500,000 million or $500,000 invested so far, a promising system is just emerging from the laboratory. The idea began some 20 years ago when high-powered lasers were revealing their ability to extract electrons out of atoms and create ions. So if a laser could generate a line of ionization in the air all the way up to the storm cloud, this connecting path could be used to guide lightning to Earth. Before the electric field becomes strong enough to break down the air in an uncontrollable surge. To support the laser itself being strung, it would not be pointed straight at the clouds. It would not be pointed straight at the clouds. Instead, it would be directed at a mirror and from there into the sky. This will be somewhere you will find the answer. The mirror would be protected by placing lightning conductors close by. Ideally, the cloud zapper gun would be cheap enough to be installed around all key power installation and portable enough to be taken to international sporting events to beam up at a brewing storm clouds. A stumbling block. However, there is still a big stumbling block. The laser is no nifty portable. It's a monster that takes up a whole dome. Dales is trying to cut down the size and says that the laser around the size of small table is in the offing. He plans to test this more manageable system on live thunderclouds next summer. Bernstein say that Dale's system is attracting lots of interest from the power companies, but they have not yet come up with the 5 million that EPRI says we need to develop a commercial system by making the lasers yet smaller and cheaper. I cannot say I have money yet, but I am working on it, says Bernstein. He reckons that the forthcoming field test will be the turning point, and he is hoping for good news. Bernstein predicts an avalanche of interest and support if all goes well. He expects to see cloud zappers eventually costing 50,000 to 100,000. Other scientists could also benefit with the lightning switch at their fingertips. Material scientists could find out what happens when mighty currents meet matter. Deals also hopes to see the birth of interactive meteorology, not just forecasting the weather but controlling it. If we could discharge clouds, we might affect the weather, he says. And perhaps, said Deals, we'll be able to confront some other meteorological menaces. We think we could prevent hail by inducing lightning, he says. Thunder, the shock wave that comes from lightning flash, is thought to be the trigger. Thunder to be trigger for the torrential rain that is typical of storms. A laser thunder factory could shake the moisture of the clouds, perhaps preventing the formation of the giant hailstones that threaten the crops. With luck, as the storm clouds gather this winter, laser touting researcher could for the first time strike back. Right, now coming to the question answer session. First is the main topic discussed in the text is the damage caused by US golfers and golf players by lightning strikes. Now, the effect of lightning on power supplies in the US, in Japan, not really. A variety of methods used in trying to control lightning strike. This is what is being taught. And one more is remaining, a laser technique used in trying to control lightning strikes. So I guess D is the correct answer. According to the text, every year lightning does considerable damage to buildings during thunderstorm, kills and injures mainly golfers in the United States, kills or injures around 500 people throughout the world, and damages more than 100 American power companies. So the second would be this A. Does considerable damage to buildings during thunderstorms. Because 500 people were talked about in United States, and this number was not given. And kill and injures mainly golfers in the United States. This was just a part of it. Means golfer may be a soft target for this. So the best answer would be A. Researchers at the University of Florida and the University of New Mexico receive funds from the same source, are using the same techniques, are employed by commercial companies, are in opposition to each other. So in this, we can easily write A because we know that EPRI is funding both of them and this is given in the text. Now, no more than 2 words from the passage for each answer. EPRI receives financial support from whom? From power companies. From power companies. The advantage of the technique being developed by Dales is that it can be used safely. It can be used safely. The main difficulty associated with using the laser equipment is related to its size. Its size. If you revisit it again, if you want to revisit, and wherever this is being taught, you will really find these answers. Then complete the summary. So in this method, a laser is used to create a line of ionization by removing electrons from atoms. Electrons can be extracted from atoms only. This laser is then directed at dash in order to control electrical charges to where? I told you that this is going to come. And eighth is nothing but your storm clouds. A method which is less dangerous than using 9 will be our G, rockets. Rockets. As protection for the lasers, the beam are aimly first at 10. Now this is coming. 10 is D, mirrors, right? Just as a protection for the lasers. And then finally, 11 to 13, do the following statement agree with the information giving the passage 1. First is, power companies have given DLs enough money to develop his laser. 11. This is no, because he was saying that I have not been funded, but still if I am able to do it, there will be a flood of the money will be pouring. 12th is, obtaining money to improve the lasers will depend on tests in real storm. This 12 is true. This is given. And weather forecasters are intensely interested in DL system. Now this is not given. Though, in the text, if we read the text after reading the text, we understand that it is going to be helpful for weather forecasters and meteorology and various scientists. But still, this is not given in this manner. So now let us move on to reading passage 2, the nature of genius. The nature of genius. And before we go ahead, let me go to the questions. So choose 5 letters, A to K. Below are listed some popular beliefs about genius and giftedness. Which 5 of these beliefs are reported by the writer of the text? So these are, A to K. That means we need to find just 5. A is, truly gifted people are talented in all areas. The talents of geniuses are soon exhausted. Gifted people should use their gifts. A genius appears once in every generation. Genius can be easily destroyed by discouragement. Genius is inherited. Gifted people are very hard to live with, and people never appreciate true genius. Geniuses are natural leaders. Gifted people develop their greatness through difficulties, and genius will always relieve itself. Then true, false, and not given, that will cover, that will read after we have covered the text, and then we'll move on to passage 3. So let us read it. If you want to read it yourself, you can pause and read it by yourself. There have always been an interest in geniuses and prodigies. The word genius, from the Latin gen, means family, and the term genius, meaning begetter, comes from the early Roman cult of divinity as head of the family. In its earliest form, genius was concerned with the ability of the head of the family, the paterfamilias, to perpetuate himself. Gradually, genius came to represent a person's characteristics, and thence an individual's highest attributes derived from his genius or guiding spirit. Today, people still look to stars or genes, astrology or genetics, in the hope of finding the source of exceptional abilities or personal characteristics. The concept of genius and gifts have become part of our folk culture, and attitudes are ambivalent towards them. We envy the gifted and mistrust them. So this is important. In the mythology of giftedness, it is popularly believed that if people are talented in one area, they must be defective in another. That intellectuals are impracticals. That prodigies burn brightly too soon and burnt out. So this is also important. That gifted people are eccentric, that they are physically weaklings. That there is a thin line between genius and madness. That genius runs in families. That the gifted are so clever that they don't need special help. That gifted is the same as having a high IQ. That some races are more intelligent or musical or mathematical than others. That genius goes unrecognized and unrewarded. That adversity makes men wise, or that people with gifts have responsibility to use them. Language has been enriched with such terms as highbrow, egghead, blue stocking, wiseacre, know-all, buffon, and for many intellectual in the term of denigration. The 19th century saw considerable interest in the nature of genius and produced not a few studies of famous prodigies. Perhaps for us today, 2 of the most significant aspects of most of the studies of genius are the frequency with which early encouragement and teaching by parents and tutors had beneficial effects on the intellectual, artistic, and musical development of the children, but caused great difficulties of adjustment later in their lives, and the frequency with which abilities went unrecognized by teachers and by school. However, the difficulty with the evidence produced by these studies, fascinating as they are in collecting together anecdotes and apparent similarities and exceptions, is that they are not what we would today call non-referenced. In other words, when, for instance, information is collected about early illnesses, method of upbringing, schooling, etc., we must also take into account information from other historical sources about how common and exceptional these were at the time. For instance, infant mortality was high and life expectancy much shorter than today. Home tutoring was common in the families of the nobility and wealthy. Bullying and corporal punishment were common at the best independent schools, and for the most part, the case studied were members of the privileged classes. It was only with the growth of pediatrics and psychology in the 20th century that case studies could be carried out on a more objective, if still not always very scientific basis. Geniuses, however, they are defined, are but the peaks which stand out through the mist of history and are visible to the particular observer from his or her particular vantage point. Change the observers and the vantage point, clear away some of the mist, and a different lot of peaks appear. Genius is a term we apply to those whom we recognize for their outstanding achievements and who stand near the end of the continuum of human abilities, which reaches back through the mundane and mediocre to the incapable. There is still much truth in Dr. Samuel Johnson's observation. The true genius is a mind of large general power accidentally determined to some particular direction. We may disagree with the general, for we doubt if all musicians of genius could have become scientists of genius or vice versa. But there is no doubting the accidental determination which nurtured and triggered their gifts into those channels into which they have poured their power so successfully. Along the continuum of abilities are hundreds of thousands of gifted men, women, boys, and girls. What we appreciate, enjoy, or marvel at in the work of genius or the achievement of prodigies are the manifestations of skill ability which are similar to but so much superior to our own. But that their minds are not different from our own is demonstrated by the fact that the hard-won discoveries of scientists like Kepler or Einstein become the commonplace knowledge of school children. And the one outrageous shapes and colors of an artist like Paul Klee so soon appear on the fabrics we wear. This does not minimize the supremacy of their achievements, which outstrip our own as the sub-4-minute milers outstrip our jogging. To think of geniuses and the gifts as having uniquely different brains is only reasonable if we accept that each human brain is uniquely different. The purpose of instruction is to make us even more different from one another, and in the process of being educated, we can learn from the achievements of those who gifted than ourselves. But before we try to emulate geniuses or encourage our children to do, we should know that some of the things we learn from them may prove unpalatable. We may envy their achievements and fame, but we should also recognize the price they have paid in terms of perseverance, single-mindedness, dedication, restrictions on their personal lives, demands upon their energies and time, and how often they had to display great courage to preserve their integrity or to make their way on the top. Genius and giftedness are relative descriptive terms of no real substance. We may at best give them some precision by defining them and placing them in a context, but whatever we do, we should never delude ourselves into believing that gifted children or geniuses are different from the rest of the humanity, save in the degree to which they have developed the performance of their abilities. So now let us come to our question answer session. 5 of these beliefs reported by the writer of the context. Truly gifted people are talented in all areas. The talents of geniuses are soon exhausted. Gifted people should use their gifts. A genius appears once in every generation. Genius can easily destroyed by discouragement. Genius is inherited. Gifted people are very hard to live with. People never appreciate true genius. Geniuses are natural leaders. Gifted people develop their greatness through difficulties. Genius will always reveal itself. So now these are all what we have learned, and we will try to find out which are correct. First is truly gifted people are talented in all areas. No, this is incorrect. The talents of geniuses are soon exhausted. This is being actually said. Then gifted people should use their gifts. This is also being said. A genius appears once in every generation. No, this is not true. Genius can be easily destroyed by discouragement. E. This is also not being said. Genius is inherited. F. Yes. Gifted people are very hard to live with. G. This was not being said. And people never appreciate true genius. Yes, this was being said. Geniuses are natural leaders. This was not being said. And gifted people develop their greatness through difficulty. This is true. And genius will also always reveal itself. This is not being told. So eventually, our answer would be D, this B, and C, and F, and then H, and then J. Now, in true, false, and not given means identification session. First is 19th century studies of the nature of genius fail to take into account the uniqueness of person's upbringing. 19. Is this true? Yes, this is true. 19th century studies of genius lack both objectivity and a proper scientific approach. This is also true. The true genius has general powers capable of excellence in any area. 21. This is false because this we have just seen in the previous questions. The skills of ordinary individuals are in essence the same as the skills of prodigies. Now 22 is true. The ease with which truly great ideas are accepted and taken for granted fails to lessen their significance. 23. This is also true. Then giftedness and genius deserve proper scientific research into their true nature so that all talent may be retrained for the human race. 24. This is not given. Geniuses often pay a high price to achieve greatness. 25. This is very true. To be genius is worth the high personal cost. This is not given. Well, this line seems to be very, attractive to be regarded as true, but this is not given. Now we are on to passage 3. So this is from 27 to 40. These are the list of headings, and we have to assign headings to this paragraph. For example, we'll read these headings: the biological clock, why dying is beneficial, the aging process of men and women, prolonging your life, limitations of lifespan, modes of development of different species, a stable lifespan despite improvements, energy consumption, fundamental difference in aging of objects and organisms, and repair of genetic material. So these are paragraphs, and as we have learned this, we will read the content. But before that, let me go to the final question answer series, because we need to read this first so that we can understand the passage better. No more than 2 words. So write your answers. Object ages in accordance with principles of dash and dash. Through mutations, organisms can dash better to the environment. Dash would pose a serious problem to the theory of evolution. Then, yes, no, and not given. Like the wear and tear theory applies to both artificial objects and biological systems. In principle, it is possible for a biological system to become older without aging. Within 7 years, about 90% of the human body is replaced as new, and conserving energy may help to extend human life. Okay. Our lifespan is restricted. Everyone accepts this as biologically obvious. Nothing lives forever. However, in this statement, we think of artificially produced, technical objects produced which are subject to natural wear and tear during use. Right? So, artificially produced, we are talking about. This leads to the result that at some time or the other objects stop working and is unusable, like death in your biological sense. But are the wear and tear and loss of function of technical objects and the death of living organisms really similar or comparable? Our dead products are static, closed systems. It is always the basic material which constitute the object and which is the natural course of things, is worn down and becomes older. Aging is this case must occur according to the laws of physical chemistry and thermodynamics. Although the same law holds for living organisms. The result of this law is not inexorable in the same way. At least as long as biological system has the ability to renew itself, it could actually become older without aging. Right? Older without aging. So we have seen one question. So this will be coming. An organism is an open dynamic system through which new material continuously flows. Destruction of old material and formation of new material are thus in permanent dynamic equilibrium. The material of which the organism is formed changes continuously. Thus, our bodies continuously exchange old substances from new, just like a spring, which more or less maintains the form and movement, but in which the water molecules are always different. Then coming to C, thus aging and death should not be seen as inevitable, particularly as organisms possesses many mechanisms for repair. If it is not, in principle, necessary for biological system to age and die. It is not, in principle, necessary for a biological system to age and die. Nevertheless, a restricted lifespan, aging, and then death are basic characteristics of life. The reason for this is easy to recognize. In nature, the existing organisms either adapt or are regularly replaced by new types. Because of changes in the genetic material, that is mutation. So, we'll be answering mutation somewhere. These have new characteristics in the course of their individual lives. They are tested for optimal or better adaptation. So, adaptation has also come to the environmental condition. Immortality would disturb the system. It needs room for new and better life. So, immortality is going to disturb the system. This is the basic problem of evolution. Every organism has a lifespan which is highly characteristic. There are striking differences in lifespan between different species, but within one species, the parameter is relatively constant. For example, the average duration of human life has hardly changed in thousands of years. Although more and more people attain an advanced age as a result of developments in medical care and better nutrition, the characteristic upper limit of most remain 80 years. A further argument against the simple wear and tear theory is the observation that the time within which organized organisms age lies between a few days, even a few hours for unicellular organisms, and several thousand years, as with mammoth trees. Now, if a lifespan is genetically determined biological characteristic, it is logically necessary to propose existence of an internal clock, which in some way measures and controls the aging process, and which finally determines death as the last step in the fixed program. Like the lifespan, the metabolic rate has for different organisms a fixed mathematical relationship to the body mass. In comparison to the lifespan, this relationship is inverted. The larger the organisms, the lower its metabolic rate. Again, the relationship is valid not only for birds but also simply on average with the systematic rate for all other organisms like plants, animals, and unicellular organisms. Animals which behave frugally with energy become particularly old, for example, crocodiles and tortoises. Parrots and birds of prey are often held chained up. Thus, they are not able to experience life, and so they attain a high life span in captivity. Okay, crocodiles, tortoise. Animals which save energy by hibernation or lethargy, bats or hedgehogs, live much longer than those which are always active. The metabolic rate of mice can be reduced by a very low consumption of food, hunger diet. They then may live twice as long as their well-fed comrades. Women become distinctly about 10% older than men. If you examine the metabolic rates of two sexes, you establish that the higher male metabolic rate roughly accounts for the lower male lifespan. That means that they live life energetically, more intensively, but not for as long. It follows from the above that sparing use of energy reserves should tend to extend life. Extreme high performance sport may lead to optimal cardiovascular performance, but they quite certainly do not prolong life. Relaxation lowers metabolic rate, so does adequate sleep or in general an equable and balanced personality. Each of us can develop their or his or her own energy saving program with little self observation, critical self control, and above all, logical consistency. Experience will show that to live in this way not only increase the lifespan but is also very healthy. This final aspect should be forgotten. Now let us start with this 27 to 32. The biological clock, 1. And this is, as we have seen, somewhere it was being given biological clock, and we'll go to that particular passage. So this is our paragraph B, right? So let us match with this paragraph B. Which one is this? Paragraph B, is 27, is actually fundamental difference between aging of objects and organisms. If you look at them carefully, it was being talked about that warning or the aging is controlled by chemistry and thermodynamics. We are talking about products and basic materials and means living organisms, right? So B will be IX, means 9. Paragraph C. Paragraph C, the list of heading would be, this is about, say, repair and evolution, adaptation and mutation. So C would be best headed by why dying is best beneficial, because it leads to evolution. And then coming to paragraph D. D. Every organisms have a lifespan, right? As it was talked about that, someone may live higher than what is expected, but 80 years is what, because there is always wear and tear, right? Like mammoth trees, they live for 1,000 years. So D, we will relate it, means 29, with 7th, a stable lifespan despite improvements, 80 years. This is the main point, key point. Paragraph E, let us go to paragraph E. So this was about some internal clock, biological clock. So the best one of 30 would be the biological clock, of course. F is paragraph F. So F was about those who work hard and those who hibernate. So how does they affect? So we'll link it F, that means question 31, with 8th, energy consumption. And finally with G, which was, this was a conclusion. So it was a self-observation, critical self-control, logical consistency. The final aspect should not be forgotten because extended life is being talked about, prolonged life, So relaxation of metabolic rate, energy saving program. Okay, now we can really link G, that is 32, with our prolonging your life. Last one. Okay, now 33 to 36. So Objects age in accordance with principle of dash and dash. This is physical chemistry and thermodynamics. Through mutation, organisms can dash better to the environment, means adapt. Dash would pose a serious problem for the theory of evolution. This is immortality. Immortality. I told you that immortality and mutation and this adaptation would come. Now 37 to 40, yes, not given, no. The wear and tear theory applies to both artificial objects and biological system. 37, and this is no. This was no. Actually, this is a contradiction to what has been told. Then, in principle, it is possible for a biological system to become older without aging. Yes, this was true. I highlighted also somewhere. Somewhere. Yes, actually becoming older without aging. So this is true. Yes. And within 7 years, about 90% of the human body is replaced as new. 39, this is not given. This is a very precise saying, so it is not given. Conserving energy may help to extend human life. And this is true, yes. They gave example of tortoise and hedgehogs, etc. So this was test 3 reading section IELTS 8 for you. Thank you so much.